I would describe myself awaking on a spaceship like that. That really was the feel of it. Every piece of my organism was shaking. It felt like there's always a shaking going on, kind of like when you're on an airplane and you're walking from like your seat to the bathroom. You could walk, but you feel the movement of everything that the vehicle is going through. The most real, when people talk about waking from the dream of the life that we know, and it feels more real on that side, like that resonates with me because that felt more real over there, which was a really weird thing.
For years, people have been labeled as crazy, quacks, or whatever, but you have people telling you that, hey, there's been a cover up. We haven't really been allowed to talk about this for varying reasons, and it's slowly starting to expand, right? You have more things coming out. And they recently, in I believe January, had another one, a private UFO hearing, and they seem to have gotten something, some kind of evidence, something that makes them believe Grush more, that his allegations are more credible. So it's like we're getting this drip of information, and it's being taken more seriously, and more people are interested in the topic.
Just kind of notice the most interesting details to pop up. So the interdimensional aspect, that is something that has been highlighted by more than one representative by now, and they're really trying to point that out. Another one would be like extraterrestrials, not really the word we're hearing. It's remarkable to still see like how little of effect it had on people this past year. It was like, right. You know what I mean? No one was running through the streets or nothing. It was just amazing.
Or the people in the comments, I get it all the time. Oh, this is CGI. I work in production. And I'm like, listen, you just ignored the whole scientist statement about the mathematical formula on how they travel is possible. So what if he made up the video? And that video that I posted, one of my recent videos, it wasn't a made-up video, it was a video from like the 90s. Another thing about the insiders is people say, oh, it's a psyop, they're trying to control us and blah, blah, blah. And part of it might be. But what I also say is that the bulk of the insiders, the bulk of the people coming forward to share their stories are people saying that the government, the people that run everything, are lying to you.
I do plan to make the projects that I'm reading about. So when I read about a UAP capture center and see how that can be done, I'm going to try and build one myself. I want to explore psychonautical suits of armor is what I'm calling it, but basically I'm approaching CE5, which is a close encounter of the fifth kind. That is human initiated. Dr. Stephen Greer is a huge proponent of it, as well as many others.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Christian and welcome back. And today I have a special guest, my friend Ryan from the Ryan Wood Show, here joining us today. And we're just going to be chilling out a little bit, talking a little bit about what's been going on. Nothing too crazy in the news as of yet, but things have been periodically happening here. But before I begin, be sure to check out Ryan's YouTube channel, and you can find him on YouTube here. Thanks for joining me today. I had the pleasure of joining you on your show, so I appreciate that. And it's nice to have you on mine.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm very flattered that you want to hear more from what I'd have to say. I think I put a lot of myself out there sometimes, and sometimes you wonder, gosh, does anybody even want to hear what I'm saying at this point? So that's I think we both enjoy each other's company. I think I like to learn from what you've got to say and your expertise as well. While we're on the subject, I do recommend Transcendent Vibe, Christian's YouTube, his TikTok. I learn from your stuff daily, man. It's great.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. And people do want to hear from other people because it's just like there's big guests and I have more coming soon. But at the same time, it's good to hear about what people around the world are thinking, what they're seeing. And I know you're out in Cali, right?
Yeah, I'm representing California, the West Coast. Nice. Grew up a lot in Southern California, but I am in Central Cali, man. I am in the farmlands now, but I like it. I like living outside the city, to be honest.
Right. And just to get this started in regards to yourself, because I know we've had discussions about UFOs, channelers, mediums, and what happens when you die, and all those kinds of conversations. But what's your origin story, man? What brought you into this? Were you always curious? How did this start for you?
Certainly, I think you nailed it there. I think how far back. That's a hard question to fully answer, but always been one of the most curious kids in the classroom or in the group setting, whatever that would be. If anything, I was the kid that the teacher wanted to kick out of the room because I'd get bored with what was going on, or you got it after the first 10 repetitions, but I'm bored going into the next 30 if it's math or just all sorts of different stuff. So some of that would be different pace than the rest of the classroom, not fitting what they wanted me to be structured into. And a lot of that would also just be a lot of curiosity. I'd have I have a really good ability to ask question on top of question, and it comes from such an easy place inside because that is who I really am. I really do have just endless curiosity. So coming to the phenomenon, UAPs, UFOs, spirituality, gods, angels, this is such a giant subject, but my earliest memory would just be finishing the assignment early, and the teacher would have books in the back of the classroom, and you could read whatever book you wanted until the next assignment would come up. And anytime there was mythology back there, I was just all over that stuff. So Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Chinese mythology, Vedic texts or Hindu. Some of these things cross over into modern beliefs and modern philosophies. So it is kind of a sticky subject to really research and discuss because there's like everything.
Right.
What's a Christian? There's just branches. And some of those branches are fully open to interpretations and sharing and talk about us as you will, and others are not. So it's difficult to find others that you can converse this stuff with because you do risk stepping on people's emotions at times because some of these things are still current beliefs today. So if you're going to talk about religions and mythologies and folklore, all of these things kind of cross over at a certain point. But yeah, so it's a touchy subject, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, and so um, it's been something that I've personally, like in a solo mission, investigated on my own very deeply, and then any chance that I get to meet somebody of another culture, or another religion, or even just another state, another city, I
Yeah.
find a lot of value in those conversations with other people that are unlike myself because I learn
Right.
something every time. And um, yeah, it's one thing to learn about a religion from the website or the Wikipedia or whatever. It's completely different to talk to somebody that's willing to be more one on one and get their version of it. So I like to kind of wide scope and see all the different conversations, all the different ideas from a really far back and wide perspective, and then kind of narrow into one at a time after that. And yeah, it's still it's never ending. There's just never enough time to
Right.
read these things.
Yeah, I understand, and it's just becoming more and more prominent. All of this, just because a lot of strange things are going on and up in the skies and in our
Yeah.
governments and stuff, and uh, people are becoming more vocal all over the world, whether it's their near death experiences or even UFO sightings. And it's a lot easier to capture on film a bit now, right? Now that everybody has everyone has a camera in their pocket, and it's getting easier and easier to do that and harder to dismiss. So we all know something's going down. So, but when you were touching up on like all those mythologies and everything, what I find fascinating about, because I also have a fascination with like Greek mythology and
Mhm.
uh, the Enuma Elish and all these like old texts and stuff, the Emerald tablets and stuff. They're all
Yeah.
talking about something that when you look at it from a certain perspective, it looks like they're telling us something, but we seem to like where we're at now. We're like, oh, that was just myth. but it's slowly starting to seem like there may be more to the story. Not necessarily saying that it's like word for word, but maybe they did see something that was to them considered magic, so that's how they wrote about it. And what's that saying about when something's at a technological level, it's imperceptible. There's no difference between that and magic, even though
Yeah.
it's just scientific advancement, right? So that I find fascinating. My next question for you is: have you had any of your own experiences, sightings, anything like that?
Yeah. And this is like, I mean, I'm doing a video essay series on my YouTube, and it's literally stopped. Like it's on a break or a pause at these, because these are, um, okay, to be 100 honest with you, I'm trying my hardest to interpret if these messages were meant to be shared. Like okay, so first
Right.
you have to determine, am I seeing something real, or is this completely in my imagination sphere? Like, of course that's always on the table. It's very hard to move very solidified into, no, everything I see is real, it's not in my imagination. Like I'm
Right.
holding all of these different possibilities. But when you lean into the synchronicity, when you lean into the woo, and you lean into the magic and like believing in this stuff, um like responsibility, I guess, is what comes to mind. It really is something I'm not exactly sure if like, uh so my experiences, one of them that's the most profound would be a salvia trip. I took salvia when I was about 10, 12 years ago or something, in my 20s. um and it basically looks like fish food. It just looks like a little powdery, like it looks like fish food,
Mhm.
like little flakes, dried stuff.
Yeah.
And I got it at a cigar shop, labeled as salvia. I was kind of familiar enough with what that stuff was, asked a few people that had tried it before, got as much info as you could on that stuff at the time, but um, smoked it, blasted off. It was an incredible experience. Uh, in that experience, I did have an out of body experience. I completely was, honestly, it was like being aboard a spaceship. It was a out of body experience. Um, I would describe myself awaking on every piece of my organism was shaking. It felt like there's always a shaking going on, kind of like when you're on an airplane and you're walking from like your seat to the bathroom. You could walk, but you feel the movement of everything that the vehicle is going through. It
Right.
felt like the earth was the vehicle, and like I was feeling all the vibrations. But um, just that was a real interesting sensory. Um, I kind of lose consciousness as I see it, I guess, or what how to I'm visualizing every step of the way. At no point do I black out. At no point do I lose um, my sense of consciousness. But I'm not seeing the world anymore. At a certain point, it felt like I'd be inside of a television or a video game suddenly. Then from there, I wound up on the ship area that I'm describing. And the
Right.
ship is where it felt the most real. When people talk about waking from the dream of the life that we know, and it feels more real on that side, like that resonates with me because that felt more real over there, which was a really weird thing.
Mhm.
Um, and it ends pretty quickly with a really neat visualization. I see two angels, demons, creatures, beings. I don't know what to describe these. To describe them best, and I did journal at some point. I might find that photo. It's buried in the garage or something, or not photo, a drawing I made. It's buried somewhere at this point. I couldn't find it for this interview, but um, Pan's Labyrinth, or
Right.
Guillermo del Toro. He has a very visual style of like he'll show you the angel in a very
Yeah.
grotesque and like biological. So Pan's Labyrinth, the guy with he's got his hands for eyes. He's got no
Yeah.
eyes really, and he uses like fingertips or eyeballs. I mean, it really felt like that. It felt
Mhm.
the two beings I saw. I can't remember if they had eyes, if they had some sort of crazy mask thing going on, or feathers or horns. Like, I don't remember all the details because it was like such a quick moment. But basically, I look up. I'm in a hallway. I'm in a hallway, and it's like, what the hell? And it's just a dark hallway. I can't featureless dark hallway.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of like, what is going on? I was just smoking this drug in my bedroom, having fun. Now I'm on what is where I'm trying to interpret everything all at once, and they grab me. These beings grab me by
Mhm.
my shoulders or by my arms, like one on each side, grabs me, picks me up, and they take me to the wall. Like, the wall is the edge of the room. It's a big giant black dome or giant wall,
Mhm.
and it's all black, except there's like a perfect cutout hole right in the middle of it that's my shape. It's Ryan's shape. And so they picked me up by my arms and they shoved me back into like the cookie cutter shape of myself. So like Looney Tunes when
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny runs through the wall and he went so quickly it leaves like a little outline of it. Like that
Yeah.
that was what I was shoved right back into. And when I popped right back in, it was like, oh, and I'm back in my bedroom and I'm looking at my buddy who's like, he's sober. So I go first. We're both going to smoke the salvia and we're doing a monitoring and trying to keep it safe. And neither of us has tried it before. So we're really trying to be as cautious and safe as we could. Um, I ask him though, I'm like, so dude, what the hell was I doing for like the last, I don't know, 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever that was? And he's like, nah, no, bro. You literally like put your head down in your lap for about 10 seconds, maybe. You just kind of went down and then came back up. But for me, it was like at least minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes or something of a experience. So the time dilation kind of hit me.
Yeah.
Um, the problem with all that stuff though is like, when you have these experiences and there's a chemical involved and you have an altered state, it's so much less compelling when you want to share it or talk to other people about it, and like for obvious reasons, because it's like, no,
Yeah.
I can't tell you that experience was outside of myself. That might have been completely imagination land. Like, I don't know. But that
Right.
was a really really cool one. And then you hear other people talking about out of body experiences, abductions that don't have to take place like physically, you know what I mean? Consciousness abductions or soul abductions, whatever that be. So it's
Right.
like,
Yeah,
oh,
like astro abductions I keep
yeah,
hearing. Mhm.
yeah, man. Yeah, it was fascinating. It was there's a whole lot more to that whole trip and story, but the rest of it's easier to dismiss from other people's perspectives and just kind of find details in it. But it's like, so why do I bring that up? It's like, I don't know, man, because if you make contact with another entity or consciousness and you did that through meditation and living like a pious life, um, it just seems to be the correct manner. So what is right? What's wrong? That's a very difficult question to answer. But I don't know if doing a drug in my 20s to jump out to the other side of the universe, like, I wonder about how disrespectful that might have been. And that's such a weird question. I guess nobody really
I get what you
brings up
mean.
often. Yeah, it's I'll tell you this. I was like powerless and feeble and overwhelmed by the beings I described. They picked me up effortlessly. Like, how big were they? I don't know. I don't know if I ever saw their bottoms or their feet. Like, it could have been a 9 foot to a 20 foot entity. They might have flown to get me up into the wall that they pushed me back into, or
Were
maybe they
you
just
scared?
reached up. Um, not it's it was like incomprehensible to even get to the point of fear. I was like
Mm. Just going through it.
confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, like confused, awestruck. But fear is not really the emotion that comes to mind. And them, they didn't. Okay, I did have an impression from them, and it was weird. It was like it's like a Pan's Labyrinth thing. Like they had a smile and like a jovial, almost, maybe trickster, maybe these other descriptors that kind of get thrown there, but it really felt like the impression I received, and again, my impression, so I don't know, I can only guess to their intention if they are in it, it really felt like curiosity. It felt like if a chicken got out of the coop, and if the chicken got out of the coop and it was walking around your front yard, you wouldn't really be mad at it. You'd be like, "Hey man, what are you doing out here? You're not meant to be out here. You should be back in.
Hmm.
Go on back into that." Back up into the wall you go. It felt like
Yeah.
they were putting me back into my place. So, with that interpretation, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I was messing things up for the day, or maybe I'm not,
It
maybe I
almost
was being
sounds
kind of rude.
you like broke out of your earthly experience and they noticed and are like, oh wait, that's not supposed to happen and you're not done here. And then they
Yeah.
get you back. Which is interesting because
Yeah.
a lot of near death experiencers um, it's described in many different ways, but they often talk about how they're told they're not done yet and they have to go back. And that getting back happens in various ways where they're like, even in one person's experience, she said her deceased uncle pushed her and she like fell back into her body. And some people just end up getting sucked back into the body somehow and things like that. But that's what your story reminds me of. So it could be some similarity to that. I don't know because if it seemed more real, but
Okay, so here's the weirdest part. For the part that stuck in my head. Not, I mean, the
mm,
time dilation, sure, like that's really neat and everything, and the vibrational sensation that kind of picks up and
right,
takes you along over with it. A lot of that will correlate to how other people describe things as far as aliens and UFOs and other types of encounters. So, um, the timing of it was just too, um, almost like a, how to say it, like in a movie, the dream sequences are directed, written out, so they really happen into like a perfect manner. And that's how this felt. It felt like it all fell into place perfectly because the time dilation part, it correlated right back into me having awareness back into my normal like physical body and such. So it wasn't like I'm having a dream where I'm falling, and
mhm,
as I hit the ground, I wake up and I'm back into my normal self, because it's like, um, my buddy doesn't describe it as me going to sleep. He described it as me putting my head down, coming back up, and I'm right back within 5-10 seconds or whatever. So it was weird. It was like it wasn't like the how does I don't know. Again, yeah, it might just totally be up in my head, but it was really interesting how well the script of that little scenario climaxed and concluded right at the point that like I'm coming back to the rest of the other world, and I could see how that would happen with just like happenstance and naturally and stuff, but it did feel like
intentional,
more. Yeah, it felt like intentional, or like I was being directed back into the normal script of things, like in a movie. In a movie,
right,
the dream sequence is too perfect, I guess is a way to say it. When you dream outside of movies, like in normal life, dreams are more confusing. You don't wake up right at the moment of the climax, and that's right when your wife is saying hello, good morning to you. That'd be weird. It'd be strange for all
right,
of that to line up in the real world, in the dream world. That's how it was for me, though. It was like this experience was like those two worlds lining up very well, which was very different.
right. And I think that there's more to consciousness than meets the eye because there still isn't a scientist today that could tell you where consciousness in a human being stems from. They don't know. They don't have an answer for it. Which is why I'm more of a believer in the new theory now, and my research that I've looked into supports it is filter theory, that the brain is more like a receiver of consciousness, like a radio. And even if you mess with the radio, yeah, weird things will happen to the filter, and you can have like, because there are some scientists that are like, well, I can put these like, little probes on the brain and give electrical stimuli, and the person will feel like they're having an out of body experience. And I'm like, yeah, you could do the same thing to a radio, but even if you ripped all the wires out and the radio shuts off, did the signal going to the radio stop? No, the signal's still there. So that's how I like to think about it. And I like touching up on this stuff because in my research, and we've talked about this, has brought me right into the UFO phenomenon. Inevitably, I never thought it would take me there, but it did. Consciousness seems to be key. So um, to bring this back into the uh, UFO topic too, what are your thoughts on everything that's been happening so far, right? And that's crazy. It's for years people have been
Yeah.
labeled as crazy, quacks, or whatever, but you have people telling you that, hey, there's been a cover up. We haven't really been allowed to talk about this for varying reasons, and it's slowly starting to expand, right? You have more things coming out, and you even have Congress get this information out, right? And they've been trying to just have hearings, trying to talk to David Grush in private, and there's just this kind of like push and pull kind of thing that's going on, and they're more under the understanding that they're actually being blocked intentionally. You have the sequence of events happening here where we were always getting information from different sources for a while now, but now, like officially in Congress, we have David Grush. Then they try to get him into a skiff environment so he can divulge the information he has. They got denied. They went into a private UFO briefing, and it was BS. But then they recently, in I believe January, had another one, a private UFO hearing, and they seem to have gotten something, some kind of evidence, something that makes them believe Grush more, that his allegations are more credible. So it's like we're getting this drip of information, and it's being taken more seriously, and more people are interested in the topic, and it's showing us that something's going on here. You even have Paula Luna mentioning, when interdimensional beings are mentioned, to pay attention to that aspect publicly on television.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts with all this happening? What do you think?
Man, so predicting disclosure is going to be just a folly. You know what I mean? That seems to be
Right.
something that if any of the older heads in the community have given me good wisdom, it's like, don't hold your breath.
Right.
This whole stay tuned for more type of thing keeps coming up. So I can't touch on that too much. I do think I do believe it's inevitable. I think we will have full disclosure at some point, or catastrophic disclosure at some point. I think that's
Yeah.
coming through. Um, I personally just believe these whistleblowers. I can definitely see how that can be psyop. Like, yeah, I get it. This could be just totally one more magic card trick to keep us looking over here instead of over here, keep our attention and focus on the big nothing. Or, I definitely see all the follies of that as well. But when I've spent a lot of time trying to just watch Ryan Graves, Fravor, Grush, there's Michael Herrera. There's just a lot of whistleblowers coming out with like top secret clearances, military clearances, intelligence clearances, or a different career that just had the ability to be more exposed to that type of information. And as I watch these people, they're very compelling. I believe them. I guess is what to say. I've really tried to criticize and find where they're messing up, and it's just not. They just seem like they're very genuine versions of themselves, and
Right.
the stories they retell sound very plausible and realistic. So um, I too, that's a big gray answer back to your question, because I too just kind of noticed the most interesting details to pop up. So the interdimensional aspect, that is something that has been highlighted by more than one representative by now, and they're really trying to point that out. Another one would be like extraterrestrials. Not really the word we're hearing. We're not hearing
Yeah.
extraterrestrial. ET. ET is like such a common, that's like
Yeah.
Hollywood gave it to us. The American people are ready for that, and they're like, no, we're going to be very specific with our words right now. We're going to say non-human biologics, not
Yeah.
alien bodies, not
NHIs.
NHI, non-human intelligence, which is like that's interesting, man. So it does point to so many possibilities of, I mean, geez, what is interdimensional? That is a word I think I understand, and I have so many years of learning and reading about it. But can a three-dimensional being really interpret what a higher dimensional being is? And
Right.
that's such a, and look at, okay, while we're on these subjects, like I think it was just this month that NASA is wanting to discover like plasma life. Like it's
Right.
it does seem very, curious. It seems very curious at times how all these stories and developments kind of all come out around the same time.
Right.
There's definitely like a um, rapid nature to these events where I guess I don't know, man. I don't know. Is it getting out of their hands? You know what I mean? Are the shifting of the guard from the Majestic 12, whatever the elite body that probably was governmental at one point
Right.
in contact with crashed UAP, UFO, crashed life forms as well. It definitely, I mean, Roswell seems very realistic to me as at least a
Yeah.
very close to the starting point. But is that the starting point? Maybe it's
Right.
way before that even. But I could see that being the point where it was catalyzed into being important enough that a government agency would need to be formed to keep it under wraps, keep it under control, threat assessment, technology, reverse engineering, just there's about look at the Manhattan Project and how well they pulled that off when they needed to. So it's definitely possible for our government to be compartmentalized down to the nth degree and have the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing.
Right.
I just see so much realism for all that, but it's like it definitely seems to have changed around, man. 2018, we got
Yeah.
these Navy videos dropping, and it's just I mean, that was a big turning point for me, and I know it was a big turning point for many, many, many other people out there. That was like when it became way, way harder to be a deniability. We can't just keep shoving off this UFO saucer thing. That the Tic Tac was just compelling. The Go Fast, the Nimitz, all those videos are just they speak for themselves. So that's where we're at now. Is um, we were able to just do the character assassination, and it's remarkable to still see like how little of effect it had on people this past year. It was like, you
Right.
know what I mean? No one was running through the streets or nothing. It was just amazing. I brought this up to everybody at Thanksgiving. Or here's another one. I'm in some political channels on YouTube too, so I'll bring up UFO questions in there if they've got like a Q&A and an open section. I want to hear what other people have to say about these things. I'm very curious in
Right.
everybody's opinions. And one of my favorite political people, they responded back like, all right, so the UFOs are real. What do you want me to do about it? And it was like, yeah, like I kind of get that. I don't not everybody's as heavily invested in this question as you and I are, which it is what it is. That's okay. There's enough room for all of us to be curious in every department. And yeah, man, it's a very, very interesting time right now. Like basically to summarize, it just seems like it's a wild time to be alive right now. It seems like how could I possibly be born into the day and age where this stuff is actually going to be discussable and not like I'm not.
I've thought
I'm in
that
the
myself.
yeah. How 30, 20 years ago, this would have been a lot more of a brave video for us to make, just to put our faces and names or voices to the
Right.
discussion or ideas out there. Career suicide for many people for many generations. So as often it's like as born um, into the 90s, so I get to live prior to the internet, then the birth of the internet, then after the internet, or as with the internet, I guess. I get to be born in the age of UFOs being a silly thing for silly people to discuss, and the dogma that accompanies it, and then the change, which again, like 2018 is a big part of that, but
Right.
it's been a slow it's been a change. It's been a change. There's every year there's been some sort of movement into the progress, whether it be um, another Star Wars movie, even, you know what I mean? Because
Right.
when you have people just seeing the possibility of like a space station with spaceships coming in and going, and then how about this? You get to see a Wookiee that's best friends with Han Solo, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're buddies. Yeah, they're different creatures, they're different aliens, and they're different. They're not, the Wookiee doesn't act like the human all the time. The human doesn't act like the Wookiee all the time. They're different, but that's okay. And that's just like groundbreaking, because go 50 years before that, and it's Captain Kirk like smashing lizards with rocks and stuff. It's like every alien was a monster for a portion of time, especially like
Right.
Twilight Zone. It's always like, is it a monster, is it us? And now I don't know, that they're just it's opening the book for the ideas, for the discussions. um I do believe consciousness is a part of this. I am a believer in that side of it. I understand how that could be a false narrative and I'm wrong, but personally, in my own experiences, the more I gather information, the more experiencers that I talk to, the veridical evidence that we've brought up in previous episodes between
Right.
near death experiencers or channelers, there's a consciousness aspect to it. It's almost
It's all tied in.
it's all tied in. It's like it'd be as silly as trying to explain that like UFOs and UAPs are real, but the gravity part of it's all fake. They're not using anti gravity. That there's little blades, little propellers everywhere. So it's just a drone like technology, and it's like, you'd be like, no,
Right.
sorry, man, I cannot believe that. Like, I've seen observables that basically tell us that it's bending space time or using anti gravity, or maybe that's the same thing. Like, um,
Yeah.
so the consciousness aspect, it's like it's there. The anti gravity aspect, it's there. Some of these things do seem somewhat undeniable, or at least for a very stronger argument to be associated to the phenomena, if you're willing to gather the evidence and look through and sift. And I think we've both kind of talked about that we
Yeah.
both like to come at it with a wide perspective and really try and, like, find the overlaps. And I think that is a wise way to do it, because, oh man, it's almost like the more definitive you get on your answers, like, you're probably wrong. The more
Yeah.
the more
I
wide scope, the better.
for years I used the term ET, and there have been some cases where some insiders will mention like the ET stuff is kind of like a word that the main populace uses, and it's what they seem to understand the phenomenon as. And I'm starting to lean in towards the NHI because it does leave it open. And in my own research, there have been even cases in hypnotherapy where the person under a regression is asking to talk with the beings, and the hypnotherapist is like, "Are you guys what we understand as aliens or ETs?" And they're like, "No, but if that's what helps you to better understand like a different type of intelligence, then yeah, you can say that." you know. But
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, so and the whole interdimensional thing connects because you have people with near death experiences sharing clearly that there are other realms and other dimensions out there. And some also, I say some, but it's many of them, all saying that the universe is infinite. So there's realities that we're not even aware of, like realities upon realities upon realities. And what I seem to get from all this research and some of the insiders coming out, they're realizing that, oh, yeah, this is real. And those other realities are communicating with us. So it's just like
Yeah.
that whole thing. And, and it goes to show you too, it's not like whenever we see craft and stuff, they're not all the same shape. We hear the classic UFO disc shape. At the same time, you always have the people who will deny it. Or the people in the comments, I get it all the time. Oh, this is CGI. I work in production. And I'm like, listen, you just ignored the whole scientist statement about the mathematical formula on how they travel is possible. So what if he made up the video? And that video that I posted, one of my recent videos, it wasn't a made up video, it was a video from like the 90s or whatever. But it's just, to some people, a video could seem so unreal. And to me, it doesn't matter. The video doesn't matter because you can always say any video, no matter how real it looks, it was fake. There's always a cop out.
Oh,
There's always a cop out for the truth. And even if it was real, you could still deny it. And by
yeah.
you denying it publicly, you have your group of deniers joining you, and then you have the believers who are like, no, there's no way that's not real. It's real. And I say, it doesn't matter. Pay attention to the substance around the data that we're getting. Something's clearly happening. We have pilots seeing these things. We have, a pilot who is seeing a circle or a cube in a sphere, or a sphere in a
Yeah.
in a square,
Yeah.
and hovering over a base. You have Captain Robert Salas, and Captain David Shinley coming out publicly and saying, "Hey, they told us to be quiet about this. They made us sign NDAs about not talking about this. They used to fly over our nuclear bases, shut our missiles down. They never hurt anybody." And there's clearly something going on. So you're telling me that because you think this one video is fake, all the rest of it gets to
Yeah.
disappear? That's not
Yeah.
how it works. You know what I mean? You have to take in all the data that's coming in. It's all data, whether it's a CGI video or not. The rest of the data, there's got to be, if there's just one out of the plethora of pictures and videos that we've been receiving, just one, then it's real. So what
Yeah.
then? And and another thing about the insiders is people say, oh, it's a psyop, they're trying to control us and blah blah blah. And part of it might be, but what I also say is that the bulk of the insiders, the bulk of the people coming forward to share their stories, are people saying that the government, the people that run everything, are lying to you, which
Yeah.
is pretty obvious in other areas un UFO related that they're lying to us. So I'm more inclined to believe the people coming out saying, "Hey, I had this experience. I seen this UFO. I work for the government. They made me sign paperwork telling me not to talk about this." And you have so many people backing up those stories. And you have David Grush now, who went through this long, arduous process over 4 years just to do it the right way and not do it the wrong way by just not going and having a hearing or anything like that. And it's finally out there in the open, and it's spreading like wildfire because, like you said, we do have the internet now.
Yes.
And now that it's out, you can't, like everyone's saying, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So it's just like, say what you want about whether this video is real or fake, but the phenomenon is real. You know what I mean? Like it's happening. I've had my own personal experiences. You had your experiences. I know
Yes.
many other people that I genuinely believe, I on a day to day basis that I talk with, that they've had their experiences and they're real. It's just, yeah, it's a real thing.
Well, I think that's a great point you're making. And it brings me back to my biggest question. You said, hey, let's talk today. And you gave me kind of an idea of some of the questions or some of the ideas. And whenever I get these opportunities, it really does make me kind of focus in on like, what is your message, Ryan? What are you trying to share with the crowd? And I take that as kind of an important responsibility. I think the communication is important. And, you know, don't don't take it from me, guys. You know what I mean? I guess what I'm getting at is like, ah, dude, like there is a certain, you can do your own research on this type of stuff.
Right.
And you could take that, what I just said, you could take that as you want to interpret it. What is the research that you want to do for this? Do the research that's comfortable for you to do. So that might be just spending lots of time on certain forums on the internet to where UFO videos pop up and experiencers share their stories. You can go to Christians YouTube, Christians TikTok, stuff like that. Like I do think that is a version of research, is just exposure, getting yourself exposed to the ideas, to the different
Definitely,
theories. Oh,
definitely check out the Ryan Wood show,
it's
guys. No, seriously, you're always awesome to talk with.
Thanks,
So,
man. I mean, that is what I'm trying to do, is like just I have curiosity about these things. I mean, all right, well, we got my stuff up there, and this is our final words. Like, what is Ryan Wood planning for the Ryan Wood show? I'm gonna finish that video essay series exploring the woo, and in that video essay series, I am making the argument with persuasion using my own personal stories of why I think everybody should be considering the woo. I think that if I think there's magic messages in all of our lives, and I think that I encourage everybody to consider those more. And if you see them, you don't have to do anything dramatic. Just say a quiet little thank you inside, or say like, "Ooh, that was really neat." And what I'm getting at with this is like, it's like your consciousness is wrapped up in it. So I really do
right,
think that the way you approach and think about these things, your intention will have a great deal of effect on on the message you receive. It's like the message is a little bit of 50-50. It's from the sender and on the receiver end. The radio we're talking about earlier, the radio, if you cut its antennas down, maybe it gets a little bit more staticky, so you can affect the message on your end of receiving as well. So back to my list of stuff. The video essay will get finished at some point. I did win a declassified science idea project back in October through the UAP Society and Chris Leto files. And my idea was basically to do a DIY or do it yourself personal monitoring station. So things that you could do at home. What are the I really like DIY stuff, guys. I really like projects that are like 50 to $100 at most, and more importantly, your time. It's like, do you want to put time and effort into this? And so that's really going to be what a lot of my channels like. Besides the podcasting, besides talking to people like Christian and other people I think are really interesting, I do plan to make the projects that I'm reading about. So when I read about UAP capture center and see how that can be done, I'm going to try and build one myself. I want to explore psychonautical suits of armor is what I'm calling it, but basically I'm approaching CE5, which is a close encounter of the fifth kind that is human initiated. Dr. Stephen Greer is a huge proponent of it, as well as many others. And
yeah,
again, it's like, is that a territory I should be going into or not? I don't know. I'm still pondering these things. So as I do, I'm putting together a list of practices, things that I can do to temper my vessel to be better, um, more respectful if I'm going to commune with the higher being, as well
right,
as there seems that the consciousness aspect, it does seem to be like if you're tuned into the right stations, you won't be getting the negative interactions that we would all like to avoid. Abduction, the abduction, some of those stories are terrible. They sound horrible, man. So as best as I can avoid that stuff, I'm like trying to call for aliens in my backyard through meditation and being like focused. And I don't want bad aliens to come down, I guess is the way to say it. But um, I like, dude, I have like a 50% success rate with the CE5 stuff. I've done it 4 solid times, and I saw stuff 2 of those times, which is like, oh gosh, it's so much. And so I bring this up to say, like, kind of piggybacking off your last message there, I do think we need to apply our own, like, if these questions are so important to you, and if it's really worth finding the answers, you might have to do some of the homework yourself. You might have to do
Right.
the research yourself. You might have to do the experiments yourself. And um, if that's interesting to you, if you'd like to see somebody that's going through that process right now, like that is pretty much what my channel will be, as well as like talking to experts, which that's who Christian is to me right now. Christian's my expert when it comes to out of body experience or sleep paralysis or abduction, past life regression, channeling. He's read a lot of books, and so not having the time to read all those books myself, I like to reach out to people like yourself and grab from what you guys can bring to the table for me. It takes a level of trust, but that's something I'm good at. I'm good at finding the people that I can trust in. So um, I have all those ideas. You'll see my YouTube channel going and lots of things at different times. Kind of to bring it back to Christian's point, I do think at a certain point we kind of need to make a decision of how important these things are. And are these questions that important for you to answer? And what are you willing to risk for that? And it does sound somewhat scary at different times. There are fearful stories involved. That not everyone's experiences as they tell it is something that they'd encourage others to follow into their footsteps. So I don't know if I'd tell everybody to try CE5. I don't know if I'd tell everybody to do psychedelics and try and make contact. I really don't, because um, these were leaps of faith in my life, and I'm very happy that I'm on the other side of them now. I don't regret those decisions, but they were testing. They're very interesting, I guess is one way to say it. But if you want to see somebody else go through those types of experiences and play with reality and experiment with reality, I have all sorts of kooky ideas. Basically, if I see something that looks promising or interesting online and it involves like less than $200 of material and some time and effort, it fits right in with what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to figure out more things of that nature to experiment with and play with, and then kind of share with the audience. And it's putting myself as the guinea pig is what I'm explaining, because I think it's that important and I want to do it, and it's what my free time is devoted to enough. But yeah, I guess caution with all things, you know what I mean? Moderation with all things. Be safe out there, guys. Don't just like get excited for these things and jump in like head first, because um I don't know, man. I don't know how dangerous these subjects are. I'm only as experienced as I am, and I can't pretend like everybody is providing the exact same narrative or the same story back. It's a muddy gray water to tread through. So you gotta need bravery and caution and come in prepared. Um, yeah, it's requiring a lot of changes on myself at this moment, I guess is the way to say it. And I'm trying trying to find my place in the universe and how I can mitigate my vibration into the best frequency, because I do think that is part of tuning the radio to the right space. We want to get the right stations, and listen to an untuned radio. You know, the static on a 4-hour drive somewhere, you'll go
Mhm.
crazy. You know what I mean? It's just it's too much, and it's noise, and it's incomprehensible. So it will take practice and bravery, but um, I think these things are worth it, I guess is the way to answer that.
Yeah. And and I completely agree with you, man. There's different sides to the spectrum, and I do believe that there's reasons for that too, and being in a duality and all of that, and it makes sense, right? And um, there's so much more to it than that, and I always encourage people to research themselves too. Don't take my word for it. And
Yes.
usually where I start to recommend people go in a certain direction, like sometimes I'll have people asking me for advice because of the weird experiences that they've gone through, and I'm like, listen, I can summarize, and even paraphrase like what I understand, but it could sound out there from your point of view because you may not have done all of that research, and it may sound like just woo or I can't accept this because your belief system isn't there yet. So just do the research, start with near death experiences, even because and that doesn't even always, sometimes it does, but it doesn't always, uh, they don't always talk about UFOs or uh, other beings on a craft or anything like that. They just talk about what they saw after leaving the physical body. And from that alone, from the thousands of experiences, you will hear the similarities, the constant things that keep getting brought up, despite the experiences being unique to the individual. You're going to hear these core themes that keep popping up over and over and over and over and over again. And you're like, okay, there's no way this is coincidence. This is happening to millions of people, you know? So
Mhm.
that's where I usually point people towards too, because there are people who bring up the UFO stuff, and it's just like they don't understand certain things, and I know that they don't understand the near death stuff, but having started with the near death stuff, then going into the UFO stuff more, it makes a lot more sense. So it's like that's where I point people towards. But Ryan, I just wanted to thank you for your time. Thank you for being on the show. Everybody, please be sure to subscribe to Ryan's YouTube channel. He's awesome to speak with. Maybe if you have some experiences or stories, you'd be willing to share it with him and jump on his channel or follow him on TikTok and set something up. And hopefully, I'm there for one of those. And I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until then, we'll catch you guys on the other side.